and then in the Google Earth for all the mobile apps, mobile devices. And then, and I would do it right now, but I don't have a keyboard to actually write in. You have to write in a title, description. And then this little snippet of code, embed my post on my site. If you take that little snippet of code right here and put it on your website, then you get that same little box. So all of your posts associated with your account can then be featured on your own website. And that's just an easy way for contributors to share what they're doing on their own site in addition to the rest of the world. So then just to give you a sense of metrics, the content in Sylvia's Mission Blue layer gets about 500,000 views a week, which is a fair bit of traffic. And we're working to try to improve that and make it more linkable to specific pieces of content. So it's been a neat project to sort of bring the oceans alive and make them more accessible to the world, and to work with groups to tell stories. And we've just found it a very wonderful sort of exploration project. The other things we would like to figure eventually is to publish, side scan sonar, continue to make the map of the oceans more enticing, more exciting, more interesting. And if there's any feedback that people have on your experiences with using any of this, we would love to hear that. So if anyone has any questions as we go along here, just let me know. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about social networking. So the reason why we've made the YouTube videos is that then you can share them from either Facebook or Google+, and it's just another way to get exposure for what you're doing. You can share videos or photos and share kind of whatever group, and we're starting to play with having a sort of community, ocean community on Facebook and Google+, which is our social networking, Google social networking website, so that you can have a way that you can sign on and keep in the loop on what's going on. And I can't really show it right now because I don't have a keyboard. Let's see if there's a way to do that. Sorry, I usually demo live from my laptop. So here's our Google Oceans program Google Plus page. And what we've been trying to do is, do Hangouts. So Google Plus has this ability to let you hang out with video conference with maybe 6 people, but you can also put it on air, and that means anybody can join at the same time. So the Catlin Seaview Survey has done a lot of work building out a very active Plus community. So they have over 1.3 million followers on Google+. And we worked with them to produce the first hangout on air with a diver underwater on the Great Barrier Reef. And we did a hangout when Sylvia and I were in Singapore at the Economist Ocean Summit. And everyone in the summit was in a video hangout with a diver on the Great Barrier Reef who was talking to us and saying, like, here's some coral, and this is what I'm looking at here. I hope I don't see any sharks. And they've started to do photos of the day, hangouts, posts from underwater using like the Android tablet. And here you see there's a triggerfish. And they've really started to use it as an engagement tool to share their expeditions, their work, to bring the ocean to anyone from this social networking tool, making it possible for people to, and here we go, 356 shares of that whale photo. Just start to really bring the oceans alive and into people's homes, desktops, workplaces, get them engaged with what's going on in the ocean. So this has been a really neat project that we've been excited to be a partner with, and think that Plus and social networking tools can be really powerful for bringing the ocean into people's lives and giving them a way to understand what's going on. This is their special camera system, so you can see as they try to deploy that with their team of divers, see the Barrier Reef, which I've never been to and hope to go to someday, and really to start to kind of explore and see what's at stake in the ocean and how beautiful it is and why people should care and do something about it. So, so I think that is another great tool, posting, and then a little bit later, Amber is going to talk about our Ocean Photos group, which is a way that anyone can add place photos underwater to Google Maps and Google Earth. So with that, I want to see if there are any questions that people may have about any of the Google products. Or yes, Carl.
So I talked to the people from the Red List yesterday. As you know, they've just done a massive red listing, and I think we're now at 11,000 species. So for each one of them, we have a layer, a map of where the distribution is and where the critical areas. And we also have a lot of information about how endangered they are and what the real issues are. So that's all for free. So we could actually try to upload these things, which would give us a lot more content of what's actually in the ocean. And I think that could be a really neat project. And just wanted to know, where do you think that would fit, and what would be the mechanism for bringing something like that online?
I think offhand, the best place is probably the education layer in Google Earth, and we are working eventually to allow partners to put in their own logo, so that if it's Mission Blue associated, they can have that logo. If it's IUCN Red List, we can have that logo with their own links. And I think that is probably, we'll probably be consolidating a lot of these layers into kind of one general education layer. And so if all of that content could be uploaded in that way, it would be featureable. And then the other thing is then you could also feature it on your own site using the Maps API. And I'm not sure. See if I can show you our crisis team has created a crisis map for Tropical Storm Isaac. And it features the Maps API and a number of layers on the right-hand side here. And they are going to work to make their sort of template, which is just using the Maps API. You can have satellite view and see ocean data. But the advantage of their model of their template is that then it basically any mobile device that you have the content on, it will all look right with the way that they've designed it. So instead of having this, you could have Red List, and you could turn on various layers, like just the Red List. You can make it searchable with the search box. You can, have the photos layer on, like if you create a panorama of photos layer that just has Red List photos, you can have that particularly embedded and featured, and any other like marine protected areas, you could have that as well. So you can sort of create a custom searchable sort of showcase place on your own site in addition to having it accessible from the Google Earth platform. So that would be my guidance there. And we would love to feature any of that content and bring it to greater attention. Great.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was a layer on kind of jurisdictional boundaries or management areas.
So all we have right now in Earth is a marine protected areas there, which Dan's going to talk about. And those are right now all of these white boundaries. And it's, they call this sort of website that is a bit of a backend for this Protect Planet Ocean, and you can add photos, videos for the different protected areas. We are working to update this data set because I know it hasn't been updated in Google Earth in 3 years. So we want to, for certain, update it. I know we don't have all the correct California boundaries, the correct Australia boundaries. So our data for that is a bit dated, and we have the latest update with WCMC. And we're hoping to get that eventually uploaded to our backend database for Google Maps and Earth, so that all the protected areas, if they're on the site, and I forget the UNEP WCMC website name, but
World Database on Protected Areas and Protected
protectedplanet.net, right? So if the data is correct in protectedplanet.net, that data source is what we will use to update our current data, and eventually we'll make it searchable from within Google Maps, which will be a huge improvement so people can actually find the protected areas. And then this is kind of a neat animation that was built with Pisco. That's right. Jane goes sort of before she became the head of NOAA. And you can click protect this site, and it shows you the science of marine reserves. Like, actually shows you like how the fish size increases, the frequency increases, with the idea of trying to create a visual of, you know, what's possible to get people to understand, you know, the science of that work. So,
could you comment on the potential for the time slider concept, that because the ocean has been changing and we do have records that go back some decades, encouraging people to show that visually how it was, how it is, and then you can maybe extrapolate how it might be. But you've begun to have some content on that basis, have you not, of the time slider for the ocean?
Yes, so I can speak to what is possible right now. So we have, like Sylvia mentioned, a tool called historical imagery. Internally we call it time machine. And you can go to a place, and I'm zooming in right now, just off Galveston. So I'm from Texas in the US, and there's a place just east of Galveston called Bolivar Peninsula. And as you zoom in here, it was hit by Hurricane Ike a few years ago. And as you zoom in, you're going to see imagery load. Right up here is this clock icon in Google Earth, and if you click on that, you can actually go back in time. And there's a slider that shows up, and you can go back, and you can look at history, and you can zoom in, and then as you zoom in closer, when I can find it. It made it impossible to find. There you go. So that is the destruction after Hurricane Ike. So it washed away like the majority, a huge number of the homes. And for many days, people couldn't see kind of what was left and what wasn't left. And we published the imagery in Google Earth at the time to let people be able to go there virtually when they couldn't go back to their homes and see what was remaining. And so at least being able to go back in satellite imagery is one way to be able to show change in time. Now, it's most powerful right now on land because we don't really have a satellite imagery sort of capacity for the water, for underwater. It's much more expensive. There's very little imagery that exists underwater. So that is a future, that if at some point it is easier to collect imagery, like over coral reefs, we could publish it through this same pipeline and let you be able to go back in time and see coral reefs, 5 years ago, coral reefs now, and see the change, so before and after. And that's using the historical imagery. As far as being able to show a sort of timeline of photos, you can create a sort of, we have this thing called the Earth Gallery, which is content from many other people, contributors from all over the world. And there are ways that you can do photos overlaid in Google Earth, and that you could create an animation with a time slider that sort of goes through time. And groups have done this for the melting Arctic, so the sea ice extent at the poles, and you can play an animation and it'll cycle through the decrease, the ice extent, and you can see the change. So you can do the same thing with photos to show, have a time slider so that the oldest photos show up first, and then it sort of plays through to the newest photos, and you can go back and forth and show the time differences. So I think it takes a little bit more work to do the photo thing, but I think that's something that I think would be very powerful for people to see, changes to the reef ecosystems and even sharks. Like when we were in Panama, I didn't see a shark while we were there, and there used to be huge swarms of sharks. And I think if people could see the change, it would be really powerful, and especially if someone was telling that story. You know, I remember when, and this is what it looks like now. You know, the whole shifting baselines problem, like how do you make it real for people? You have to really show them. So I would love to see something like that created.
Do you want to mention what we're trying to do in Monterey with the ocean acidification?
Sure. I mean, so Dan and I are working on an ocean acidification tour to be played in Google Earth, and we'll create a video of it to showcase at the Blue Ocean Film Festival in a couple weeks in Monterey. And it'll be our first attempt to try to bring the data and tell the story in a compelling way, because the threats are huge and really difficult to grasp. You know, where are all the coral reef areas in the world? You know, Flower Garden Banks, Australia. And I think ultimately in the future, I'd love to see it tied to the economic risks at hand, because the Great Barrier Reef alone, tourism to that area, right here off Australia, is $1 billion a year. And if all of that coral is dead in 50 years, that's a huge economic risk. And I think we're not experts in that area. We're building this visualization tool and sharing tools, and we hope to continue to work with partners who know these stories and can help bring it to a general audience, consumer audience, policymakers.
So one of the things we're struggling with and trying to do is I want to try and use this tool to show how the ocean is changing chemically. It's a big challenge, but as I'll show you in one of the animations, we talk about the ocean's 30% more acidic. I think if people saw that on their desktop, they might get a little bit more worried. So it's the challenge I'm always pushing.
Yeah.
It's the challenge of how we do this. I think we're almost in a position to be able to try and do those sorts of things. And of course, if you can do it, potentially you're putting in front of 1 billion people in inverted commas. So it's a massively powerful process, and we're trying to, as we'll hear from other people in other sectors, trying to bring new, there's an invisible ocean acidification community, and the time shift idea is something which works really well, not just with corals and fish, but with chemistry and those types of things. And it's, how can we make that happen and get that? Now we've got this brilliant platform.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. Great. Well, with that, I want to thank you, and we're going to now turn it over to our next speaker. John, do you want to try to plug in, or?
Yeah, no, so they're going to have to switch computers, so that should take just a second. So I'm ready.
John Francis is our colleague at National Geographic, and we've worked really closely together on highlighting expeditions in Blue Ocean maps, and also showcasing their ocean atlases and their GeoQuiz content. And also in Earth is the land-based, like Mike Fay's flyovers, and we have really benefited from a partnership with Sylvia, who's a National Geographic explorer, and we're just delighted that you could join us today, John.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. So while they're getting my PowerPoint set up in a separate laptop, just a couple notes about National Geographic and the oceans. I'm a marine biologist by training. I ended up turning into a marketer. I realized that National Geographic was a huge engine for change. And I was sitting out on the beach watching the seals for my life for about 15 years and realizing the beauty of nature, and also that people didn't understand the precious challenges that we were facing. So I decided to jump ship and become a filmmaker, and then more recently an administrator of our grants program. So we end up funding science around the world and have done so for over a century. A lot of people don't know that. But the heroes we support and the projects we enable allow us to awaken people to the beauty of the oceans in particular, and especially once you get people hooked, to make it real for them about how they can act. So Google is a particularly powerful partner for us because of the enormous reach and visualization and the spatial kind of voyage capability that people can enjoy, tied to our information and our heroes and our great imagery. Is my PowerPoint ready yet? I'm sorry? Oh, okay. I thought I had it up. It's on the thumb drive. PPT file on the thumb drive. So anyway, the challenge at National Geographic is, of course, to find partnerships and to get this information out to the widest audience. And one of the things that I'll be showing you, besides highlighting the partnerships with Google Ocean, is the cool stuff we get to do in the innovative technology that puts a face on the ocean, including CritterCam, which I was fortunate to be the first, well, actually the second scientist to put CritterCam on an animal. I was down off the coast of Chile and put a CritterCam on a